Hello and welcome to the CNBCTV18 special. I'm Shireen Bhan and I'm in conversation with a man who's ending an 8-year-old relationship with a company that he helped catapult to the #1 position before it lost ground. Shiva, I appreciate you joining us here on the show. It's been an exciting and perhaps a disappointing 8 years as well, because you actually helped Nokia catapult to the #1 position in terms of the kind of customer satisfaction, brand loyalty, so on and so forth. But towards the end of your tenure, if I could call it that, the company seems to have lost the plot.
Yeah, in the tech industry, you have rapid changes, and these things happen quite a lot in the tech industry. All I would say is every business and every leader needs to look at his own tenure as, there are some positives, there are some challenges, and the fight continues, and you hand over the baton to the next bunch of guys.
What happened? You went from having an almost 70% market share down to a 40% market share in 2008, down to about 20-odd% market share currently today. You got squeezed at the bottom end from the likes of Micromax and Carbon, Lava, etc., squeezed at the top end, the likes of Apple, Samsung. You are somewhere stuck in the middle. How do you move from here?
I would say, when markets expand, and Nokia drove the expansion of the market. The primary role of a market leader is to grow the market. Which is what Nokia, I think we did it brilliantly, and we got absolutely things right. As the market reshaped into the smart device, into other segments which started happening, like the touch, the dual SIM, etc., I think our innovation was slow to the market, and I think that's what really hurt us.
Is it the curse of the market leader, Shiva? When we talk about innovation, not being able to anticipate the change enough, not being able to respond to consumer preferences, consumer choices fast enough, is that the curse of the market leader? Because there's a sense of complacency.
No,
is it hubris?
That's not true. I don't think it's the curse of the market leader. I think Clayton Christensen says that perfectly when he says, the innovator's dilemma. That's what it is. And Nokia has always been innovative. Nokia has never been arrogant. It's never been a company which has rested on its laurels. That's one thing you must always give Nokia. And in the tech business, you tend to lose some innovations. I always say that if you get 6 out of 10 innovations right in the tech industry, you're fantastic. 3 out of 10 is par for the course. And the key thing is when you miss an innovation, how quickly do you come back and recoup lost ground? That's what's critical. If you look at Nokia right now, we are in the midst of a very big transition from a Symbian operating system to the Windows operating system. That's a huge transition, and I don't think people recognize the magnitude of it or the severity of it. And it involves building up a completely new ecosystem, and that's what Nokia is doing right now, and it's on its path. So if you look at Windows and how Nokia is doing within the Windows platform, Nokia is doing brilliantly there. I think Nokia has more than an 80% share of all the Windows phones sold in the world. That's fantastic. The challenge is to grow it and make it more affordable as more and more people in the world move to smart devices at the $75 and the $100 mark. I think that's a critical thing.
There were questions raised when you decided, or when your role was moved out of India to a emerging market role. There's been questions now as to why you're quitting Nokia at this time, because Nokia is making an attempt to turn its story around as far as India is concerned. India continues to be one of the sort of growth markets for Nokia, the second after China. Why the decision to quit now?
Yeah, I looked at it and I thought to myself, I think Sunil Gavaskar said this best, you should leave when people say why and not why not. So I looked at it and said, okay, I've done my stint, I've done my bit and my best over 8 years, and I needed to come back to India. So the family was here and I was there. So over a period of time, I came to this conclusion. I think it took me about 6 months. It's not an easy decision ever. When you have so much of your emotional stake in a company, it's not easy. But then I said, okay.
But as you leave, Shiv, do you feel more reassured about where Nokia stands today? And I want to understand where Nokia is going to be positioned over the next 10 years. For instance, in a market like India, you talked about how the move from Symbian to Windows has been a huge transition, a transition that you're in the midst of. You talked about the challenges of smart and affordable. But how would you like to position yourself? Because again, I come back to my point of you're somewhere stuck in the middle, and stuck in the middle is where you start getting squeezed from both the bottom and the top.
Yeah, so for any company at any point of time in technology, the only way out is to out-innovate everybody else. If you fall behind on innovation, you will always be challenged. And that's why in any tech company, and if you look at the big history of turnarounds in tech companies, there have been very few, Apple and IBM.
Yeah.
That's it, So if you don't innovate, you'll get left by the sidelines. Okay, and to your question of what would I want, Nokia or India, and this relationship, Indians and India have mattered to Nokia. Okay, and Nokia has mattered to them.
Yeah.
Okay, it's possibly one of the few brands which has fundamentally altered and impacted individuals in a very big way. Second, it has impacted society in a fundamental way. And third trend which I am seeing right now is informally it is impacting governance. Okay, I believe it will formally impact governance, mobile technology and brands like Nokia in the future.
But what will drive Nokia? Will it be Asha or will it be Lumia?
I think both. See, I think
Can it really be both? And the challenge that they're also facing right now, should there be a cheaper iPhone or not?
I think they will do a cheaper iPhone. That's my guess, because if you want to grow, okay, let's step back. The world has 7 billion people. This year, for the first time, two things are going to happen in technology. One, smartphones will sell more than 1 billion units this year. Big. And second, a very important one is the mobile internet will be bigger than the fixed internet. So I personally believe that this whole explosion of smartphones and applications, okay, will ensure that every company who's in the mobile sector, be it Apple, be it Nokia, be it HTC, be it any of the players, they will have to win in smartphones first. Because winning in smartphones gives you the thought leadership, the cachet, and the premium to work in the other.
But aren't you well behind in that race?
That's okay. At one point of time, you might be behind. There'll be many points of time you'll be ahead. For example, if you take the construct of the Lumia phone, in the area of imaging, Nokia is miles ahead of everybody. Okay, in the area of location services, Nokia is miles ahead.
But you have a brand problem, don't you? Because as far as the high-end smartphone market is concerned, when you think high-end and you think smartphone, you think Apple, Samsung, or BlackBerry. You don't think Nokia necessarily. So you're probably ahead as far as products is concerned. You may have all of the features and so on and so forth, but there's a brand problem.
No, I would look at it and put it differently, which is, the whole mobile sector is a product game first and foremost. Okay, so if you look at the Indian market as an example, I think there are more than 300 or 400 models on the shelves right now, about so much. The top 15 models account for 80% of sales or more. Okay, so to start with, this is a product game. Okay, so constructing the product and making it available and seen in many hands is the first challenge.
Okay.
Okay. So when people say there's a brand problem, etc., they invariably refer to usage problem. It's not a brand problem. So the brand is still loved. If you actually look at all the traction for the Lumia range, whether it's the 920, the 820, the 720, 620, you will see that it's gaining ground significantly. So for example, Nokia has sold, as of March 2013, 19.9 million units of Lumia already. So almost every quarter we are. It's in line with the strategy. The trajectory is right.
Let's talk about Asha, because you just said that you believe Apple will do a cheaper iPhone. You've tried to do the cheaper smartphone with the Asha. $99 is what you're talking about. How much lower can it get? And I want to link this back to a point that you had made several years ago about how the tariff war had actually led to operators bleeding, and had led to an impact on profitability as far as the telecom operator ecosystem was concerned. Do you envisage the same happening for handset manufacturers?
Absolutely. I think that's a great point you ask for, because one of the things is price in every sector has never generated value. Never ever generated value. The only thing which has generated value is innovation, number one. Second, India has gone through a very peculiar phase. In the early days we would say you had permit Raj and license Raj and all kinds of things. So we limited the number of people. And we said people need to have scale and hence need to be profitable. Now that India has scale, we have gone exactly the opposite direction. We have started giving licenses left, right and center. And the telecom operator sector is a great example. Okay, I believe there is place for a maximum of 5 operators in this country. 5 operators? That's it, max. And the 5th guy will struggle, trust me. Because see, let's go back to stats. 800 million subscribers, let's take. Even if I divide by 5, 160 million per this thing. Just about. You can't make money with the kind of tariff rates we have right now. We went to 17 operators. There is no way that anybody can make money. Somewhere you have to protect, I think, the consumer and the industry also. I'm not a guy for protectionism. Please don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is, when you open up dramatically like this, you get products of variable quality and wrong quality into the market. We don't have standards to actually set that. For example, 60% of the phones sold here in this country by volume, okay, will not be allowed in most of the European countries or most of America, because the basic standards are not met. I am saying that in order to compete in India, you must say this is the benchmark of quality. And you
so
must
the cheaper
that.
Chinese imports must comply with a standard that's
Absolutely.
an Indian standard.
It's not an Indian standard. I'm okay with the global standard. Okay, but it must comply with what is correct.
So in that context, you know, there's the innovation dilemma, there is the cost dilemma, there is the competition dilemma. If you're saying that in India there is no space for 17 operators, you don't see more than 5 actually surviving. Globally, even within the handset industry, we've seen significant amount of consolidation. Nokia is perhaps the only European significant player left. What is the future like as far as the handset business is concerned?
It is not just handsets. And again, you look at any industry across the world, the number 3 player does not have a global market share of more than 10%.
Yeah.
The number 3 player. Okay. So in no industry will you have a long tail ever. Okay. It might happen for a period of time and then it consolidates. And specifically, if you look at the mobile industry, 20 years ago, we had Americans, we had 6 Europeans, no Koreans, no Chinese. Okay. 10 years ago, we had 1 European, which is Nokia, 1 or 2 Americans, and then the Koreans coming through. Today, the same European continues, which is Nokia. American, we have Apple coming through, and then we have a bunch of people. This industry has changed significantly every 10 years. And the only answer to stay ahead is to beat the consumer expectations on innovation. That's the only answer.
You also said that emerging markets help you to be more creative and more adaptive. Clearly, there have been lessons learned on that front, but what has the Indian market taught Nokia?
I think one of the things the Indian market has taught Nokia is that innovation, the vote on innovation, plus or minus, happens every 7 days.
Every 7 days?
Every 7 days. So, and it's a very peculiar thing about the Indian market, which very few of the Westerners understand or really realize its impact. India is a prepaid market. So is Africa. 95% of the market is prepaid. The average ARPU is about $2 or less. So what does that tell you? It tells you that consumers are going to the shop to top up almost every week.
Yeah.
Or every 3 days. Because the balance on people's phones is 10 rupees or 20 rupees, etc. So every time they go to the shop, they're asking the shopkeeper, okay, what's new? Which phone is new? What features are new? So if you really have good innovation, you know within 7 days whether it's working or not. If you have a bad innovation, equally you know within 7 days it's working or not. Okay, so one of the big lessons of an open distribution, low ARPU, high prepaid market like India is that innovation consumers understand like that.
So how did you miss out on the dual SIM trend? And that cost you significantly, because that's when you actually saw the sharp decline take place. I know you quibbled with IDC and Gartner in 2010 on the veracity of the data and so on and so forth, but that really in a sense was the inflection point for Nokia in India, was it not?
So it is, you go back, I think we just discussed this, which is when the government moved from X number of operators to 17 operators, every single operator, the big strategy was, okay, I'll come in with the lowest price. And the price was paisa per second or tariff plans which are completely untenable or below cost. Okay, because that's the only way you could get subscriber base and play for valuation, or say to your board that okay, we have a reasonable India play. That led to the consumer saying, okay, I'll have my primary card and I will have a secondary card which I will move around between the operators, whoever is giving me the best.
Yeah.
That's what started the dual SIM trend. So dual SIM had been in China there before, and dual SIMs at one level are great consumer innovation, at another level is not something that operators like. Operators globally don't like dual SIM, because if I'm an operator and I'm giving you a subsidy plan to buy a phone for a $200 phone over 24 months, etc., why would I ask you to put another guy's SIM card in it? Okay, so it was actually, I believe, a clash of ideologies at a fundamental level.
I want to talk specifically about doing business in India, and I want to quote to you what Stephen Ellup said, and he said India should be viewed less as a difficult market where strange things are happening and more as a market that's simply ahead of many other markets in its evolution. If we don't figure out how to win in India, we could end up losing in a lot of other geographies around the world. Conversely, if we can win in India, we can win anywhere. Do you truly believe that?
Yes, I think there are many sectors in this country where It's not price alone, it's value. And the Indian consumer's definition of value is dramatically different from the definition elsewhere.
How so?
If you, in India, I would look at markets very simply. A lot of people do a lot of segmentation. I look at it as just 3 tiers. The first tier being, I pay more and I get more.
Right.
The second tier being worth the price. And the third tier being, I pay less and I get less. Now, if you look at markets abroad, the worth the price is the Walmart or the Target positioning, virtually. On top of that, they have the hedonistic, a club, a belonging, the Hermes or the Ferragamo club or whoever it is. Okay. So if you look at markets like this, the market or the tier at the bottom end of the thing, which says I pay less and I get less. Why are they buying brands? Because they have huge aspirational value from brands. They believe their lives change with brands, and they believe that their self-worth improves with brands. Okay. Now that's not a segment which is available anywhere else. It's available in very few markets. Now when you look at the market like that, it forces you to think of value fundamentally differently. Okay. And that value thinking of marketeers in India and the delivery of that value through innovative business models, through material substitution, through doing things which are completely different. Of course, today professors call it reverse innovation and all that. They give it this thing. Fundamentally, I think it's about rejigging the value to the Indian consumer. I think if you can win in India and think of value like that, you will always win with consumers in many other markets.
Dealing with government in India, and you talked about how the Indian market has taught you about value and what value means, but how has dealing with the Indian government taught you about dealing with governments in other emerging markets? Are there peculiar Indian problems that you've had to face when we talk about the bureaucracy, when we talk about volatility of policy environment?
I think, see, when you talk of India and dealing with the government, India is a large democracy. Okay. In a democracy, everybody has a voice. Okay. In a democracy, very few authoritarian leaders are really appreciated. Very few leaders with rough elbows are appreciated. That's democracy for you. It can be your company and you can have rough elbows and be an authoritarian figure. But in a mainstream company or in a mainstream government role, you cannot have that. I think we could be getting to a stage, and I'm saying we could be, where we're getting arrogant to say we have scale. Okay, you need us more than we need you. I don't think that is ever true for business in any country. One of the things I notice, every place I have traveled to in Africa or even Pakistan or any of these markets, you go there, the government wants to do business with you. As if you send them your card or send them a message saying, look, I'd like to meet you, sure, when, where, how, what do you want to discuss? They're eager to do business because everybody recognizes today that economic power is very important. It gives you a very important seat at the table.
But is a company like Nokia, for instance, getting frustrated with the way things are panning out in India, getting frustrated with doing business in India? I mean, India is your second most important market after China. You've seen significant growth in India. It contributes to your global revenues. But doing business in India, has it gotten harder over the last 8 years?
I think, every country has a certain amount of difficulty. The key thing is, do you have the right institutions to solve those challenges? So to me, the judiciary, the regulatory authorities, etc., have to play that role to ensure that India is open to world companies, world-class companies, and open as a world market.
Well, you're hoping that the judiciary will decide in your favor, even as far as this tax case is concerned. Absolutely. With the income tax department slapping a 2,000 crore rupee notice on Nokia. How much of a setback has that been as far as this business of doing business with India is concerned?
I think, see, we have followed all the laws to the letter, every single thing. Okay. The issue is interpretation. Okay. Someone who is looking at the same thing will interpret it differently and say, no, you need to pay a profit on this transaction also. Okay. We have got enough opinion. We've got enough legal opinion. We've got enough consultant opinion. We've got enough international opinion to say what we've done is right. Okay. In which case, I think a constructive dialogue is the answer out.
So at the end of 8 years, what has been the biggest leadership lesson for you?
I was just telling Poonam this morning that as I reflect back, thanks to all these questions over the last 20 years, I believe leadership is a unique combination of 3 things, and I call it the ROI. Most people think of ROI as a return on investment. I look at it as ROI. I think first, a leader needs to be realistic. That's a huge leadership lesson. Second, a leader needs to be optimistic. And third, a leader needs to be idealistic. And that combination, only the leader knows which role he's playing at any point of time.
Yeah.
When people below him, at one level and one day they experience the realistic leader,
Yeah.
Secondly, they experience the optimistic leader, and many times they experience the idealistic leader. So it's quite challenging for people to say, hey, easy this or that. But I think really good leaders balance the realism with the optimism and the idealism.
Well, Shiv, we wish you the very best of luck with your journey from here on. Thank you very much for speaking to us, and we hope you are able to achieve everything that you set your heart out to achieve. But thanks very much for speaking to us today.
Thank you very much, Shirin. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much.